Hi.
Oh, hello. How are you?
Fine. How are the kids?
They are fine. But I'm worried about their future. Did you hear the news?
No. What happened?
The banks are getting another bailout, and instead of using that money to save the financial system, they are giving themselves another round of bonuses.
Well, what do you expect?
I expect the democratically elected politicians to do what they promised and change the system.
Well, democracy doesn't seem to work like that.
What do you mean?
The problem with our democracy is that once the politicians are elected, they can break all their promises and they can pass any laws they want. Politicians are effectively unaccountable during their term in office.
The public was against the bank bailouts, but the politicians ignored us completely. Now the bankers are lining their pockets with our taxpayer money.
Yes. It makes voters feel irrelevant.
Then we will just have to vote them out of office in the next election.
You mean vote for a new group of politicians that will, once again, break all their promises? Changing politicians does not change the fact that they are effectively unaccountable during their term in office. They can pass any laws they want, and the public is helpless to stop them.
I'm beginning to see your point. But what can we do to take back our country?
Get rid of politicians.
Get rid of politicians? You mean we won't have elections?
That's right. No politicians means no general elections.
I'm so angry at the politicians right now that I'm willing to listen to what you have to say. So please explain. How could a democracy work without politicians?
People who share the same political beliefs and values would get together and form a group of voters.
A group of voters that share values and beliefs. You mean a political party?
No. A political party runs candidates in an election. Remember, there are no elections or politicians. In this system, you would simply join a group of voters who share your values and beliefs.
So anyone could get together and form a group?
That's right.
Let's say I join a group. Now what?
Listen carefully, because here comes the most important part.
I'm listening.
Each group would have a member called the designated voter.
The designated voter? What is a designated voter?
The designated voter is a member of the group who is responsible for voting for all the other members in the group.
Who would choose the designated voter?
The group would be able to choose or replace their designated voter at any time. The group would have complete control over which group member represents them.
So, the designated voter would vote for us?
Yes. So while you were busy with your work and family life, the designated voter would closely follow the politics of the country and vote for the interests of the group.
So the designated voter would look out for my interests while I'm busy with my life?
Yes. The designated voter's job would be to pay close attention to politics and vote for the group.
Let's imagine that my group has 1,000 members. Then the designated voter would have 1,000 votes, right?
That's right. The number of members in the group determines the number of votes. If your group has 1,000 members, then the designated voter would be able to cast 1,000 votes.
But what would the designated voter vote for? What would my designated voter do with the group's 1,000 votes?
The designated voter would be able to contribute those 1,000 votes towards a legislative bill.
Contribute 1,000 votes towards a bill?
Yes. If your designated voter votes for a particular bill, then all 1,000 votes would be added onto that bill.
So, designated voters, representing other groups, would also be able to contribute their votes to the bill?
Exactly.
But how many votes would be needed for that bill to become law?
50% plus 1.
50% plus 1? You mean more than half of the country's total population?
That's right. The total number of votes contributed towards that bill would have to add up to more than half of the country's population. Only then would the bill become law.
But wouldn't it take time for the bill to accumulate such a large number of votes?
Each bill would have no more than 1 year to reach the 50% plus 1 requirement. If it doesn't reach that number of votes by that time, then the bill would die.
So, as the bill becomes more popular, more and more designated voters would contribute their votes to the bill?
Yes.
And if all the votes, contributed by the designated voters, add up to more than half of the total population, then the bill becomes law.
Yes.
Okay, having a designated voter sounds like it could work. Being a single dad with a full-time job, it would be nice to have someone I can trust to look out for my interests. But you haven't mentioned the most important part.
What is that?
Who introduces the bill?
You mean who would sponsor the bill?
Yes, who would sponsor the bill?
The designated voters.
Wait a minute. Any designated voter could sponsor a bill?
That's right.
But wouldn't there be, like, thousands of groups?
At least.
So, that means there would be thousands of designated voters representing those groups.
Yes.
And you are saying that any one of these designated voters would be able to introduce legislation. But that sounds like chaos.
Okay, let me explain why this would work.
I'm listening.
First of all, most designated voters would not be writing or sponsoring legislation. Only a very small number of designated voters would do that. Secondly, the designated voters that decide to write legislation would not write it alone. They would work together with other designated voters.
Like Facebook. But for designated voters?
That's right. The designated voters would form social networks and write legislation together. Thirdly, some of the designated voter networks would be well respected, trusted, and very popular, while others would be marginal or ignored. Legislation sponsored by the popular networks would get all the attention.
They would be like legislative celebrities.
Yes. The popular networks would get all the attention. Remember, only a very small number of designated voters would choose to get involved in actually writing legislation. Most designated voters would be more like bloggers or commentators. Their job would be to read the legislation being sponsored by the networks and then inform their members if they find a good bill that they want to vote for.
So, the bills would have to be written in plain English.
Yes. The bills would be written in plain English so that anyone could understand them.
Interesting. A political system that is completely accountable to the public. What a novel idea. Maybe we would be able to start making real changes in our world that benefit the public instead of the banks.
I hope so.
Where can I find out more information about this political system?
You can follow me on Twitter by going to twitter.com/DvDemocracy. Or read my blog at dvdemocracy.wordpress.com. You can also view my videos by going to youtube.com/DvDemocracy.
Make sure you join the DvDemocracy Facebook group by clicking the link in the description below this video. The description also includes instructions on how to make a video like this in other languages. Help me translate this video.
Wait. Who are you talking to?
Gotta go.